Well, I knew that in agreeing to come to Brown, I would be stepping into the lion's den. But I'm delighted all of you came out. I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the civility of your remarks. And I'm very grateful for this invitation. On one point, Professor Wu is quite right, and that is that I am, and many of us are, beneficiaries of the civil rights movement. And it is true that without the victories of that movement, the principle of equality of rights under the law would not be secured. There is really no debate about that proposition. What we are debating now is, should we take the principle of equality of rights under the law that is enshrined in the 14th Amendment, legislated in the Civil Rights Act of '64, and essentially change it, repeal its color blindness, repeal the notion that we are all created equal under the law, and replace it with some are more equal than others. However good are reasons for doing that, throughout this debate, Professor Wu's whole case hinges upon a distinction that he himself made earlier. He said there is no moral equivalence between invidious discrimination and constructive discrimination. We often hear the phrase benign discrimination. It's not intended to hurt anyone. And what I want you to think about is, what is benign discrimination? Isn't it true that all discrimination is benign to the guy who benefits from it? All discrimination is invidious to the guy who must pay its price. And what I'm trying to say is that there is no such thing as benign discrimination. Either we try to eradicate race consciousness and race-based decision-making, or we make our peace with it. Now, someone said earlier, we have to make our peace with it. Race matters. Race matters, and we have no choice but to legislate it. It is a reality that we live in a race-conscious society. Now, think about the logic of that. Imagine if you were at Brown a pacifist, and you came to this forum and made this argument. I am a pacifist. I believe that violence is awful. I believe that violence is wrong. But I note that we do not live in a non-violent society. There are people killed on the street, there are muggings, there are attacks, there are wars all over the world. And since we live in a violent society, since violence is a social reality, I feel I have no alternative but to go out and kill some people. This would be odd. It would be odd to try to promote the principle of non-violence by engaging in violence. So how do we promote the principle of non-discriminating? By discriminating. That is the fundamental issue. I would suggest that what we want to do is recognize that the civil rights movement made its progress, but we now want to move on to greener pastures, by which I